Good governance has 8 major characteristics, which are participation, consensus, accountability, transparency, effective and efficient responsiveness, equity, and the respect for the rule of law. Good governance is central to sustainable development. In Senegal, the new authorities have made good governance their creed. Concretely, this calls for the proper management of public resources. Thanks to the Sustainable Land Management Project, farmers' organizations ensure transparent and sound financial and administrative management under the citizen control of local populations within the framework of the Sustainable Land Management Pilot Project.
When GDT was launched, ASPRODEP asked us to build on our capacities and knowledge to manage the project. The management committees have been trained in organizational, financial, and administrative management. Tiro pays them based on a delivery slip, then all the documents are filled by the treasurer. In the past, everything was done for us without us being involved.
This was made possible thanks to the establishment of a management committee exclusively composed of farmers who have benefited from capacity building in procurement, administrative management, and accounting.
Right from the onset, we noticed there was change. Many projects used to be managed in the past, but I confess ASPRODEV is handling things differently now. And we're very satisfied with ASPRODEB for following us to manage the funds on our own, because this builds our skills, so even after the end of the project, we will have the skills to manage our own funds. We manage the funds transparently. Actually, the total budget of the project was 30 million CFA, disbursed in 3 installments. As part of the first tranche of 12 million CFA that we manage jointly with Fund Management Committee, actually our role was limited to withdrawing the funds, and then the committee will decide on the use of the funds.
The local technical committee supports the producer organizations in project diagnosis and development, while the rural council, administrative authorities, and local populations are kept regularly informed of the implementation of activities and the management of the funds allocated to the producer organizations. A self-assessment facilitated by ASPRODEP and ESCA students shows that this innovative approach, based on the empowerment of beneficiaries and regular citizen monitoring, is a sign of good management.
We are very satisfied, first of all because the project was managed from the beginning to the end by the populations themselves. Today, the opportunity is given to them to enable them to express their overall opinions about how stakeholders such as APRODEB, ISRA, INP, and CAR managed to help them address the challenges they were faced with concerning the degradation of their plots of land.
We are here in Deali, district of Linguère, located 25 kilometers from Touba. Here most of the inhabitants are either farmers or stock breeders, or both. Despite the blazing sun of the month of September, the smiling and attractive faces of the rural council leader and the people who are welcoming us clearly shows that we are far from the stressful life of larger cities. We are offered watermelons for 300 francs, curds for 250 francs, and cowpeas for 100 francs per kilogram by women sitting next to the community house. This gives us every reason to believe that the rainy season is going on very well in this region, located between the groundnut basin and the agro-silvopastoral area. Yet the producers in the area feel more pride about their empowerment and the trust placed in them to manage public funds. Prior to that, producers' organizations demonstrated their ability to work together and to leverage local expertise.
Thanks to the support of the development agents based in the rural community, we have been able to diagnose the sustainable land management priorities in order to develop a project that we submitted to ASPRODEB for funding. Against this background, we set up a management committee which benefited from a capacity building training in procurement, administration, and accounting.
This committee, equipped with the necessary tools for the execution of procurement and disbursement, expenditure justification and record keeping, is therefore responsible for the overall management of the project. It regularly reports to the Rural Council and the local populations through information campaigns. This approach has enabled us to invest about 90 million CFA in the rural community. Among other things, that fund was used to rehabilitate the pond of the Walumbel village, which enabled to water the livestock of the region.
L'impact financier.
On the one hand, concerning the financial impact, when there is a pond, the herdsmen don't have to pay to water their livestock, and watering their animals for free is not only an advantage, but also this will enable them to stay longer in the region, which has important spin-off effects. Actually, as long as the stock breeders are present, they will supply the market with livestock, and there are a lot of economic impacts for the populations.
Économiquement, quand ils sont là, les retombées sont nettes.
The latest statistics indicate that in Senegal, the impact of land degradation affects two-thirds of the arable lands. This amounts to 1 million hectares, with an economic cost estimated at least 1% of the GDP. According to the statistics, Senegal loses 7% of its forest resources every 10 years. It is obvious that this degradation has adverse effects on soil fertility, but also on farmers' income and social cohesion, in addition to immigration and unemployment, which are a real plague facing the youths. In an attempt to reject fatalism, the populations of some communities have stoutly decided to restore their lands taken away by erosion, salt intrusion, and deforestation, among other things. We are in the Fatick region, especially in Fimela. Here the desire to restore degraded lands is widespread among the populations. They have started by replanting and rebuilding this dam, which is meant to play a tribal role.
Au regard, en tout cas, de la position géographique de notre village, nous sommes presque...
Our village being a peninsula, in rainy seasons, this dike is the only way to the village. Look at this embankment. Apart from allowing vehicles and villagers to move around, it also drives back the intrusion of salted water. So it's a barrier to salt intrusion. Besides, it also prevents water from upstream to flow into the sea inlet. It's not only a containment dike, but also an access road. So it plays a triple role.
Une fonction de piste de production ou bien une piste de désenclavement. Donc elle a une triple fonction.
Once the poor soil is separated from the good one, thanks to the dam, rice production can now resume on the restored lands. This is the result of the Sustainable Land Management Project, which seeks to fight against soil degradation to increase and sustain agricultural productivity. In practice, the activities primarily involved training the producers in order to enable them to restore and protect agricultural lands. It is clear that the improvement of soil fertility favors higher yields in particular and agricultural production in general, and the rural community of Fimela has experienced it.
Before the inception of GDT, our village was cut from the external world by the run-off waters. Thanks to the stone wall and gabions we have put in place, our village is now accessible during rainy seasons. Arable lands and grazelands have been restored.
Women are very happy, simply because it is heartwarming to realize that the crops we need will be available out for the year. Spending 12 months without having to buy rice at the shop is a huge savings.
At the social level, the situation of many households has improved with regard to poverty alleviation or the slowdown of rural exodus, since many of them live on agriculture and stock breeding. One of the social environmental impacts is the provision of improved stoves and equipment to produce biogas. This helps spare the women the painful chore of searching for firewood, which in turn reduces the pressure on forests. In addition, community nurseries have been developed in different regions in order to support tree planting efforts for the restoration of degraded lands. The numerous achievements of the Sustainable Land Management Project have had positive impacts on the lives of the targeted populations.
On a constaté que les sols sont bien régénérés.
We have noticed that soils have generated very high yields thanks to the use of organic compost and reforestation. Besides, we've noticed a significant decrease in wind erosion. Prior to GDT, no farmer could afford to live on their own incomes and agricultural yields for more than 3 months. But now, we've noticed that 8 out of 10 farmers can meet their own needs for 7 to 8 months a year. We have also noticed a 50% increase in yields.
Beyond the fight against the degradation of agricultural land, the approach of public resources management by producer organizations is quite innovative and a guarantee of good governance. This situation is acclaimed by partners and the Senegalese government agencies involved in the Sustainable Land Management Project. Some communities have already expressed their desire to ensure the sustainability of the achievements through the development of local conventions and a buy-in for the findings by local authorities.
What is remarkable is that the farmers' organizations were able to identify their own sustainable land management problems and to devise projects under the supervision of the technical services of ISRA, INP, and ASPRODEP. In the past, the populations were bound to face the effects of land degradation. The local compact was made inclusive so that it has made it possible to sensitize the populations of the 32 villages of Niakar on the necessity to protect natural resources by regulating tree cutting. Today, there is a synergy between the populations, authorities, and technicians to conduct activities meant to restore and protect our lands.
Ce projet a permis de pouvoir au moins faire de reboisement aux abords.
This project has made it possible to conduct reforestation activities alongside the sea inlet to halt or reduce salt intrusion. In the area of Chikap, the lands were so degraded that when it rained, the roads were almost flooded, reducing access to the rest of the region. So after the construction of dikes, the lands that were not arable are now being used to grow crops.
I conducted a field visit and I was very happy to realize that farmers were excited and motivated about the project. And this has enabled very interesting achievements with respect to sustainable land management, which had not been effective in terms of utilization of sustainable land management technologies. This shows that this approach is very innovative in terms of technology transfer and devolution of management power to the grassroots. That is indeed a key success that should be capitalized on in our future projects.
Qui est à notre niveau un bel exemple qui mériterait donc d'être adopté dans nos projets futurs.
The fight against the degradation of lands will certainly continue, and the achievements of the Sustainable Land Management Project will be capitalized for the benefits of the other rural communities in Senegal.
The populations will continue to work on their own because they have pledged to take it to a further step, either with any support or not. As a farmers' organization, we intend to keep backing them with the support of the government and its partners so that we don't lose the major achievements. Also, we would like the achievements to be replicated in our rural communities.
De ce projet puisse être étendu à d'autres communautés rurales.
A national framework for strategic investment has been developed in this respect. It serves as a reference for all the structures involved in the fight against the land degradation.